Hey, late night Scotty coming at you with another EZD6 rules explanation. And I thought we'd go into miracles because it's an interesting subset of the rules. Now, when I wrote EZD6, I didn't want divine people who could call on the divine to be like gunsling, like essentially divine gunslingers like clerics in other games are, where they have all these spells they can just shoot off like bullets, right? I wanted it to be more difficult because in most fiction, occasionally the gods might throw you a bone, right? But they're not often there to help you. And that's because mortals don't know the games that the gods play, right? One god may oppose something that you're asking for. Another god, they may be able to, slip it through or whatever. So there's all these things going on that the mortals don't know about. So the difficulty in casting divine magic or miracles is a play on that, right? And they're even harder than spells because unlike spells where, if you hit one target, most targets are 1d6 defense, magical resistance, miracles always roll 3d6 defense. That's the starting defense. So it's relatively hard right out of the gate, right? And then on top of that, you can add up to 66 defense if they, if they pick more targets and this kind of thing. So, keep that in mind when you're rolling. Also, unlike conjurers who can do spell burn and eat a 1, if you roll a 1 in your prayer roll, which is 1, 2, or 3 dice, then the miracle doesn't happen. Okay, no matter if you roll a 6 or not, it doesn't happen. There's no way to get rid of the 1. Now, that's not necessarily true. There are a couple ways. One way would be to use a hero die and re-roll that 1. Lose your hero die and re-roll it. Another way is that divines can do an offering, which is a nice RP thing. So you could do, as a rabble rouser, you could have them do it then when it happens, when they want to re-roll, or maybe if they, when you're packing up camp, somebody does a little shrine to their god or goddess, and that would count for the day, right? If they do some offering to their god, that would count to the day for the day. Now, if they ask for like a big ask, right, you could say that maybe that little shrine wasn't enough. They're going to have to do more of an offering, and you could actually have it. If they did like an offering like that, you could say, and the miracle is granted, like something like resurrection, you could say, oh yeah, okay, that's fine, but now you're going to have to do this for the god, right? That might be a caveat. So as the RR, don't be afraid to do that stuff. So what can you do when you're asking for miracles? People, I think, go to the first thing they can think of, which is D&D, right? And they're like, oh, how about bless, where, we all get a boon to hit or whatever. And you can do that stuff. But I like to kind of get away from that, mechanical advantage with this stuff. I want it more story-driven. Maybe you're in a combat and you ask for help, right? You don't state, oh, I want bless or whatever, like a specific thing from the god, right? You say, oh, we're in a sticky situation, can we get help? And you ask for help from your divine patron, and as the rabble rouser, the RR, you could come up with anything that helps. Maybe something that delays, and they make their roll. Maybe something that delays the enemy, something like that. Because with miracles, you can't kill or destroy anything, right? So the gods will not infringe on each other's, territory, the mortal world, by, directly causing damage or harm. Excuse me, sorry about that. So they will not directly cause damage or harm to anything in the mortal world. So keep that in mind. Also, if the person keeps asking for the same thing, because you can only ask for one thing per scene, which is about 10 minutes. If they keep asking for the same thing, the god can just ignore them. You can just not even have a roll if you want. Like if they just keep doing the same thing, you can shut them down. The god just gets angry with them or whatever and shuts them down for the day, and they can't ask for anything else. So, you have a lot of leeway as the rabble rouser to how this works. This is more story driven. Make the miracles story driven. Don't make them the bam 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 of, like, I got a spell list, I got a divine spell list, I'm going to shoot them off like bullets. Don't make it like that. Make it so that it is story driven, right? Say someone dies, okay, and you want to try for resurrection. That's going to be a 66, resistance to that, right? So say you beat that. Maybe you did an offering during the day and you beat it, right? Well, the person is resurrected, but I would give them, start them off with one strike. They have something that's changed about them. Coming back from the dead, you're not just spring up and you're like, ha ha, I'm back. It's like your hair may be white, your eyes may be a different color. You may, you may have a different personality. You may even look a little different or something. So gaunt or something. So don't be afraid to do those kind of things in the game. It's not punishment. It's just something interesting that happens to the character. Because I'm not a fan of punishment, right? I'm not a fan of punishing the characters. But this kind of symbolizes that they've gone through something extraordinary, right? And they've come back from the dead, and no one is unmarred by that. It's not just like a video game where, bing, you spawn, you're back with all your stuff, and nothing. There's no consequences. Make it interesting. Now, say you've been playing a long time, and someone dies, and you try for that resurrection, and you fail, right? And you could let it be. You could let it be that the character can't come back. But say it's a beloved character that the characters love. Maybe the god grants the resurrection, even with a failure, but with a caveat. Like, in a year and a day, you must do this for me, or your soul comes back to me, right? There's like a quest of a year and a day that you've got to do something extraordinary for the god. To maintain your life, right? So that kind of stuff can be cool. Now, other things you could do, like with miracles, you could heal people. Okay, now the friar in the game has pretty much surefire miracles, which nothing else is in the game, right? You could say, either the friar is like just so connected, or they have some kind of innate ability that the god has given them. To do this. So they have these kind of surefire, the holy light is, and the empathic healing is like a surefire miracle that can happen. But others, it's much harder. So say someone wanted to heal the group, okay? You could do it this way. So in EZD6, you can have up to 6 targets, okay? So just take that as the thing, okay? If there's 6 or less in the group, that's basically the resistance of the heal, right? So say there are 6 people, you'd roll 66. Okay, that's the difficulty of the prayer. Okay, now basically all magic either does 1 strike of damage. So in that case, I would say that the healing only heals 1 strike. Like, you can't heal everybody back up with a miracle, right? They would heal up 1 strike. Okay, so if you succeed in the miracle, they heal up 1 strike. And they're not a heal bot because they can't keep doing it. Once you've done that in an encounter, a scene, you can't do it again. You can't keep healing like a heal bot, or you're not stuck healing like a heal bot. Because once you've asked for this, that's it. The god's not going to let you do it again. It's either succeed or fail. You can't just keep doing it, right? Once you ask for something and it fails in a scene, that's it. You can't ask for the same prayer again. Okay. So say you had this situation where you wanted to kind of mimic D&D as far as like turning undead, which is pretty cool. Yeah, you could do that. So say you asked your god to, shield you from these undead or protect you from these undead. So you could do the same thing, up to a certain amount of targets. Remember, some targets may have more magic resistance. Also, you could say that intelligent undead cannot be affected by this kind of thing. So zombies or skeletons or whatever, ghouls or those kind of things. You could, have up to 6. If it's 6, it's 66. You got to roll 66 defense on the roll. You roll your prayer dice, and you get it. Those things could be turned, but you can't destroy them because remember, you can't kill anything with miracles, even undead. You can't kill them with miracles or destroy anything. You can't destroy a building or something like that. So you could delay or that kind of thing. That kind of stuff can happen, but you don't want to have them going around smiting everything, because that starts to become ridiculous, and then it becomes you're not the God's agents. You're asking the God to do everything for you, right? It's like I'm gonna run around and just ask my God to do like D&D, right? I'm gonna run around and I'm gonna ask my God to do everything for me, right? This game doesn't want to encourage that. Don't do that in your game. You discourage that kind of firing cleric spells. This is for special situations. And like I say, you can discourage people from keep asking for miracles by just the God shutting down. Like, give them signs that your God is no longer listening to you, right? Until you do an offering or something, or until you do an atonement, or until you do something to please the God. You're asking too much, right? The gods don't want to be bothered. The gods are best served by those who do their will themselves, right? Who pledge themselves to the God and do the will, not the reverse, right? The gods are not pleased with you when you keep asking them for stuff. So, but like I said, make it story-based. Don't make it like asking for specific things. Resurrecting your friend, I guess that's pretty specific, but in general, like, oh, we need to escape this enemy, or please help us out, or whatever, and you as the rebel rouser can decide how that help comes. Maybe an ally monster could show up, that's against the enemies. Maybe they could get delayed. A bridge, the bridge, the drawbridge it gets stuck and it doesn't come down. It won't, and they can't chase you out, or it goes up and they get stuck and they can't chase you out. So all that kind of story stuff is fantastic for miracles. Now, I also wanted to say something some people get confused about the ones in this game. Now, in Magic and Miracles, if you roll a 1 in those power or prayer dice, it fails. Now, you always have the option to re-roll, use a hero die to re-roll that, but in other rolls, it doesn't work that way. Okay, so if you have boons, 1 or more boons when you're rolling a roll, if you roll a 1 in that doesn't matter. It's just the highest die. If you roll 2 ones, then you're screwed, right? But if you roll a 6 and a 1, say in your attack, you just ignore the 1. The 1s only affect magic and miracles. That's it. Everything else in the game is the highest die rolled. If you roll 1 die, then that's it. But if you're rolling with boons or banes, of course, it's the lower die with 2, and then you subtract a die if you have more than 1 bane, right? Or if you're trained and you get a bane, or you have a boon, and you just cancel each other out and you roll 1 die. Okay, so keep that in mind with 1s. You don't want to punish players for rolling more dice. That's not the idea, right? The idea of it is in Magic and Miracles, because that's part of the mini game that's happening between the players deciding on the risk versus the reward of rolling more dice. Okay, in the case of Divine, it's prayer dice. In the case of Magic, it's power level dice. Okay, what power level do you want to cast the spell? So keep that in mind with the ones. So yeah, when you're doing your own miracles, think about this. Think about the caveats, right? You don't let them keep asking for stuff. You can't damage anything. You can't kill anyone or hurt anyone. Only friars can do that with their holy light, right? Which is an innate power they have. It's basically a miracle that's been given from the deity to the friar, right? That it's become an innate ability in them. It's channeling power from the god, but it's not necessarily calling on the god, right? It's just a power that they've been given, a permanent power. So keep that in mind. So keep those things in mind. Also keep the other rules of the game in mind, right? 1 damage, which doesn't apply to miracles because you can't damage, but you could use that. You could translate that into healing. So 1, you could heal 1 strike, depending on how many targets you want to try to get within the heal, right? And then only once per scene, because you can only do the miracle once per scene. You can't keep repeating a miracle. If you do, the god will just ignore you. So that's a good way to determine how hard miracles are, and they always start out at 3d6 difficulty, pretty much no matter what it is. So you could ask for, so if please, Osmanda, give us a clue, if say the players they just don't know what to do or they're confused or whatever, give us a clue, to help guide us on our way, and that would be a 3d6, make that a 3d6. Or maybe the god just gives them an obscure clue, right? You could decide as the RR to just give it to them. Maybe their god would give it to them, right? Maybe they don't need to roll. But things that are like combat oriented or that kind of thing, always have them roll for it. Don't just give it to them, because that's part of the action and excitement of the game, right? Are we going to escape? No. So that's the fun of the game, and you're taking that away if if the god is just granting stuff. So that kind of stuff kind of falls into okay, let's just grant it. Let's just have it happen. But yeah, start out at 3d6, and like I say, resurrection would be 66, or more targets, like 6 targets would be 66. So I hope that clarifies some of the miracle stuff that people have, and kind of the reason behind it, my philosophy of using miracles in the game, why it's written the way it's written, and I'll see you guys next time, and I'll try to answer some more questions on EZD6. You guys take care and have fun. Have a great time with the game.